So now that I have all my Rhino frame animation files, I am going to make that into a GIF. You can do that multiple ways. You can take those frames right into Photoshop, or you can do that into Adobe After Effects. My preferred method is Adobe After Effects, just because the time it takes for my Photoshop software to process all of those frames, especially if we start getting upwards of 100, takes an extremely long time. So working with a video is the best option for me, which may not be the case for you. So here in After Effects, I'm just going to set up my composition. Usually I go with this HDTV 1080 setting, which is just your standard 1920 by 1080. That's pretty good for me, but I will just make this 30 frames frame rate, since that's what I base my Rhino animation off of. So my GIFs should look pretty good with that in mind, and I'm just going to label it GIF intro. And it'll be a 5-second clip. I'm going to shorten it to 3 since that was my shortest GIF, but you can make that as long or short as you want. Okay, so there's my composition. That's where we're going to work off of. You can see it down here. We're going to add all of our items here, and you'll see them layer in on this timeline. So here, if I go to File, I'm going to import 2 different file sequences and an image, so that's why I hit multiple files. We give it a second for this to load up here. So I already have this frames window open, so I'm going to select on this one image here, and if you select on the first one, it automatically recognizes that it's part of a sequence, and so these options will show up there on the bottom. And you want to make sure that this PNG sequence button is checked off. It identifies that it's also a PNG image, so that should change if it's a different file. Import option, sometimes this will be checked off to create a composition. Since we already have that, I do not have mine checked, and just import that in. So we'll see it populate here under our little project tab. And since we said import multiple files, you can see that there. We get this pop up again. I'm going to import one of these as a background just to have. So import that in. You'll see it populate there. And I want to import another GIF frame sequence. So make sure it's checked off. Okay. So there are all my files. And if I just drag these down into my composition, you see them kind of populate there. You can scale them as you please. You can just kind of drag, hold shift to make sure it's scaling uniformly, and just place them. And you can just, from here, just, let's bring in this sequence. And you can just start layering your GIFs as you would like. So just change the size on that one. And so here, this thumbnail image actually got imported as a PNG sequence. So if I bring this in here, it'll only be 1 frame long. So I don't want that. I'm actually just going to delete that out, and I am going to import Let's make sure that is not checked off, and just import it as an image. So there was, it said sequence because I had 2, the file name had, I had a second one that had that 2 behind it, but that's not what I wanted. So bring this image down here, and it just kind of populates in the back. So again, this is kind of similar to all your other layers. The furthest one on the bottom is the one in the back, top is your topmost. So you can arrange that as you'd like. And if you want this to be your video clip from here, you can just go into File and export it. You can either go through the Adobe's After Effects built-in render queue and that'll add it to the render queue, which you can also access here. These files are typically big, so I tend to just go straight into my Adobe Media Encoder queue, and you can kind of see them populate here. So I have multiple ones there. I'm just going to delete them, including this one that's already done. So let's just bring it in again. Okay, so here you can see the settings that I've already used. QuickTime supports alpha channel transparencies. This one has a background, so that won't be super important, but if you want it to have a transparent background and you want it to be more of you want your end game here is to have a GIF with a transparent background. You can kind of set that up as you'd like, and you export this one there. So I'm going to change the output file, and I'm going to name them, give them different names so that I know what is what. So this one is GIF with transparent. I'll just leave it GIF transparent. So that's good for me. And this I will leave as GIF intro clip. So since this one has a background and it's just ready to be my movie clip, I'm just going to make that into an MP4. That way I can watch it. Since I'm on a PC, it doesn't quite support QuickTime files. I can still have them, but this is just my preferred MP4 file format. So just wait for that to go through. And I just use their default, so that's fine. Okay, you see the preview here. Give that a second. Okay, so now my GIF with the transparencies. Just to show you here, let's change that format. QuickTime, if you select on QuickTime, here, let's see if it'll do it this time. If you just go off of the default, this will be the default preset, this Adobe Stock HD with audio. And in order to have the transparency kind of come through, you want to make sure that you're using one with the alpha channel available. So I just use this. I make sure I keep the defaults. Here under video, you can come down, and at the depth you want to make sure that there's that alpha channel enabled. So this is pretty good for me. You can see other settings here, and this is just the preview of your clip. So that looks good to me, and I'll just hit OK. So here I'll just come up to this play button, start my queue, and those will export. If this clip is done, I will just take it into Premiere, or this can be my final clip, and then this one I will make into an actual GIF file using Photoshop and importing this video instead of a frame sequence, since again that just takes too long on my computer. So here in my Photoshop, I'm going to click open. Here we go, and I'm going to bring in this GIF transparent video that I just made. And you can see it there with that transparent background. Up here, you're going to click on Export, Save for Web. And you can see this blue loading bar here as it kind of transforms that video file into a GIF file. And here are all of the settings to change. It will impact file size, but image size, the different colors, diffusions, dithers, all of that can be handled here. So just give this a couple seconds more to load. And see, for me, this is fairly fast. If I would have done a frame import, that would have taken um, upwards of 10 minutes. So here, basic information, file size. I'm actually going to make this slightly smaller so that it's easier for me to work with in terms of file size, and I just end up changing the image size. And you can change these here as other options here, change the lossy, and that will all compress the GIF file at the expense of your image quality. So I like to play around with image size first and see if I can get it to a decent file size. But once that loads, you can just click save and you will have yourself a GIF file. So I'll just give it some time. But there you have it. So that'll be my GIF, and I will just save it. That is good. Save. And if I come in here, open it up, there's my GIF with a transparent background.